When I was around 7 years old, for Christmas one year, my dad bought me a VHS box set of films with effects by Ray Harryhausen, a man whose work would quickly have a huge effect on my life. In that set was Jason and the Argonauts, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. I immediately fell in love with the films, later discovering Clash of the Titans, The Valley of Gwanji, of course King Kong and more, learning about how stop motion was used throughout cinema. Around this time, I also noticed that Wallace and Gromit had been done in pretty much the same way. I'd grown up with the Wallace and Gromit videos, but I gained a new respect for them upon beginning to understand how they were made. I saw Early Man recently, which is delightful, if not quite as much as Wallace and Gromit, and whilst watching I couldn't help but think, why? All this effort to make a caveman family film that almost certainly will not make as much money as, for example, the Croods? Nick Park, director of Early Man and Wallace and Gromit and general stop-motion legend, said of the form, "I suddenly saw what a magical effect it had. Everybody knows what a lump of clay is, and seeing it come to life is quite a magical thing. You can see the material, and see it moving, and suddenly gaining a character somehow." There is a tangibility I think Park refers to here, a sense of something inanimate given life. Nowadays, I somewhat struggle to really be impressed by CGI, as I know that though it obviously takes a hell of a lot of work and artistry, anything can really be achieved if you throw enough at it. Not only that, but we see it so much that the magic for me is kind of gone. With stop motion, there's something truly impressive about the idea this was created by hand, for real. It's still evolving too. I mean, look at what was done recently in the fantastic Kubo. And though it will never look photo-real, it doesn't need to, that's not the point. Even in the Harryhausen films and other stop-motion works of old, you could obviously tell these creations were not real, though at the time it was possibly harder to discern. But there is that described magic to it, and that sense of wonder at just how they'd pull it off. The placement of the ropes tied to the Allosaurus in Valley of Gwanji always astounded me, that you could so well choreograph these very different elements. And of course, the skeleton fight from Argonauts is quite rightly considered masterful work. And the detail shown in the Laker and Aardman work, it's pretty astonishing, and that's without saying just how from me. That feeling of them being handcrafted somehow just makes them funnier. With the time it takes, you need to have commitment to your choices. Unlike CG or even live action work, you can't really change anything at the last minute. To get a couple of seconds of completed animation may take days or even longer, not including the time it takes to design and build the characters and sets. It has to be a genuine, understanding collaboration between a director and the animators, and one built on trust. It's simply very difficult, but also it's that personal touch that matters. Those animators were putting so much of their own identity into these beings, spending days at a time physically beside them. Literally in Early Man, I could see the fingerprints of the animators, and I sort of loved that. Don't take this as me saying I don't like CG, or I want everything to be stop motion, quite the opposite. I love the Go Motion dinosaurs Phil Tippett designed for Jurassic Park, but to say that they would have worked better than the CG creations they used instead? No way. What stop motion offers is that whimsical magic mentioned earlier. It adds a layer of fantasy while still maintaining a very genuine human touch. Anomalisa worked for me because its concept demanded a unique way of shooting. The very British countryside inspired Fantastic Mr. Fox. How better to bring it to life than with this? And from an artist like Wes Anderson who favours such particular framing, this deliberate craft just makes sense. Going with stop motion is based on artistic reason, due to how much work it is and how specific a craft person you require. Watching a film knowing someone cared enough about their story, about their characters, to use such a way of bringing them to the screen, simply adds a dimension of passion. That's why you should bother with it, because that work you put in, we can feel it.
In the quite likely event of an emergency, put your head between your knees and
kiss your bum goodbye.